Howdy dowdy bug buds, super stoked to be back. It's been quite a while, I know, but work has been super busy these past couple of months and I've had no time to work on videos. But you know what? Being swamped with work has made me really appreciate my schooling years. It was a simpler time where I didn't have to worry about the cruel world of adulting, with bills and work and existential dread and all that jazz. So yeah, I wanted to relinquish nostalgia and talk about one of my all-time favourite topics in high school. Dance, which may come to a surprise to a lot of you, considering I very much feel the teacher's pet tryharding bookworm type. But the thing is, I didn't just like the academic subjects, I had tons of fun with sports and art too. Well, with the exception of gymnastics, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, back to the topic of dance class. So back in high school, there was one compulsory subject known as PE, that is, physical education. It had two main components, with half the course relating to theory on the body, health, intimacy, etc., whereas the other half was more on the practical side, where we did alternating physical activities. Now, depending on what class and year you were in, the activity itself would differ, but generally speaking, you had to spend one term doing dance, another term on gymnastics, and then the other two were pretty much random sports, like soccer, basketball, and volleyball. Now, it's probably worth noting that with the way PE was set up, typically you would have about 3 classes combined at one time, so around 70-ish people during one period. With dance, we pretty much just focused on line and partner dancing, with more emphasis on partner. So with partner dancing, they would separate the boys and girls and put us in a massive circle. They would then play the music, and after each beat drop we would swap to a new partner. And it was amazing. I was friends with pretty much all the girls in my cohort, or at least on good terms with them, so that definitely played a part in it, but it was so fun having 20-second bursts of chit chat while we danced to the beat. And I got really into it, like 110% going for that gold into it. For example, if part of the dance was to join hands with your partner and raise them, you can bet your money I was reaching for the stars. Now, as a disclaimer, this was only with those comfortable doing so. That said, the vast majority of them loved doing it too, and I only know this because they would explicitly say it out loud. They would often say things like, "Thanks for actually dancing with us, all the other guys just awkwardly shuffle around and put in no effort," which isn't exactly surprising, because most of the guys were just putting the bare minimum and you could definitely tell they didn't want to be there. Now, about halfway into the term, I actually came out and was an open member of the House of Iris. I'll probably do a separate coming out video later down the line, but for relevance, the gist of it is that it wasn't anything too spectacular. It was a period where I felt safe enough to reveal it, and I was quite lucky in the sense that I was on good terms with pretty much everyone in my cohort, bar a few people. There wasn't anyone I would consider a bully there. Sure, there were a couple of jerks, but they didn't really get to me because their attempts at insulting me were pretty much just calling me a tryhard or a nerd, which wasn't and isn't something I feel bad about. Plus, I was privileged in the sense that the school would likely defend me as best as they could, mainly because all my siblings were high achievers too, and they really didn't want us to change schools. The principal would straight up send our family gift packages each year to thank us for being what they considered model students. Anyway, the reason I bring this up was because a little after I came out, I actually swapped sides to the girls' team. Now, the main reason I did this was because there was actually an imbalance in the numbers. If there were 70-ish students in total, you'd expect there to be about 35 boys and 35 girls, right? But it was actually something like 37 boys and 33 girls. And whenever we were going around the circle, because there were more boys than girls, we would have to kind of awkwardly walk by ourselves until we finally switched to a partner. But they weren't spread out, rather they were all clumped together, so we'd all be standing there confused, cause what were we meant to do? Were we meant to mimic how we were supposed to be dancing by ourselves, or just walk to match the pace of everyone else? Cause with some of the dances you had to take steps back, and because of that we'd frequently end up shuffling back and forth doing nothing until we got the chance to dance again. And for some reason, this bored me to no end. It was probably only about a minute each round, but it felt like an eternity. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and swap over to the girls' side. It was a perfect plan to combat this tilting boredom, and it was a brilliant excuse to dance with some of the guys, cause, you know. I mean, in my defense, when else would I get the chance to dance with guys? Including my crush at the time, which in retrospect is wild to me. That was a ballsy move for someone as timid and awkward as me. So I swapped over, and the first dude I danced with was actually a friend of mine, and it was great. I pretty much did what I did before with the exaggerated movements, but it was low-key kinda hard to get used to, just from a muscle memory perspective. Like, instinctively, I kept trying to go in the opposite direction, but it was fine overall, just a couple hiccups early on, you know? That said, my favourite part, like absolute favourite, was the twirl. I don't know how else to explain it, but it felt like an overwhelming wave of joy from something I've never experienced before. Like, if you've ever given it the chance, I highly encourage trying it out, cause boy, was that satisfying. So, one by one, I would go to each of the guys, and because I didn't want to make any of them uncomfortable, I asked if they were okay with it. Like, my desire to do it was honestly more of a selfish thing to begin with, so I didn't want to force anyone if they didn't want to, but pretty much all of them were cool with it. In fact, quite a lot of them were actually keen to do it. A lot of them caught on to how the girls would frequently want to dance with me, so they wanted to see why. So I do my thing and we go 110% with the dancing, and most of them seemed to have fun, especially those that were more awkward with the girls. Like, I thought they'd do the same thing where they'd shuffle around too, but no, they got really into it, which would probably be funny from an outsider perspective. Like, you see one dude dance with minimal effort 1 second, then he swaps to me and goes all out, then proceeds to do no effort with the next girl. I think the strangest thing about me swapping over was the fact I actually managed to start a trend. Not with the guys swapping sides, but in collecting each other's watches. You see, in high school I used to wear 2 watches. It's nothing too deep, I just wanted to be quirky like that. Same reason as to why I used to wear my jumper in odd ways. And as immature teenagers, my buddies and I thought it would be funny for me to wear their watches too. So I would start the circle with 4 watches, and then some of the guys would ask why I was wearing 4 watches, and obviously there was no real thought process behind it, so I was just like, I thought it was funny. So then when the teachers weren't looking, they would give me their watches too. So by the end of the cycle, I would have like 10 plus watches, and the teachers would just stand there completely confused. Like, I was handed so many, I had no spaces left on my arms. I had to grasp the remaining ones, just so I didn't drop them. At one point, I even had them wrapped around my ankles. Anyway, during the next lesson, one of my friends wanted to do it too, so we all gave him our watches. And this guy kinda just blew up, where a bunch of other people started doing it too. Luckily, the teachers didn't really care about it, I guess because we weren't really breaking any rules and we always returned each other's watches, so in their eyes, it was just harmless fun. Anyway, all in all, it was a great experience, and I'm incredibly lucky I had the opportunity to do it. That said, there were 2 cons that came with it. The first one being the obvious one, the fact I didn't get to dance with the girls as often. I mean, sure, I would occasionally go back to balance out the numbers when more guys were sick, but considering I spent like 80% of the time on the girls' side, it meant I didn't get to experience dancing with my other friends. Now, the second con is a strange one, cause it actually tainted my grade. See, I was a student who, deeply cared about my report card. Like, I was one of those annoying students who would pester the teachers about my grades, and this was to the point some of the teachers referred to me as a mark shark. So when I only got a B in this class, I was deeply cut. And of course I wanted to know why, cause PE was marked on effort rather than performance, and I tried hard. So I went up to my teacher and asked him, and his response completely stumped me, cause it was literally just because I was dancing on the girls' side. Yep, it wasn't because I got too into it, or that I made a few couple mistakes when I was adjusting to the other role. It was just because I switched to the girls' role. And at the time, I kinda just accepted it. Like, the syllabus was the syllabus, but looking back at it, it was low-key messed up. But I never really cared for this teacher anyway. The dude would constantly feed me to the sharks. Typically, PE's theory and practical periods would have set times, so if you had practical listed, you would do sports, and if you had theory listed, you would learn, well, theory. But this teacher didn't like being out in the sun, so he would often scrap our practical lessons and make us do additional theory ones. So while all the other classes would be out playing sport and having fun, we'd be stuck in class having to study. But the worst part is that he would always blame it on me. Like, his excuse would be, well, I'm sure Percy would love to be learning right now. Why couldn't you all be more like him? And everyone could just see straight through his trash excuse, cause everyone knew I liked sports too. In fact, I hated the theory component of PE. It was mainly just 6 with an E education. Now, I don't know how strict YouTube is with mentioning this type of stuff. Like, technically it relates to educational purposes, but I'm rather risk averse, so I'ma just keep it broad. But like, we would only be allowed to talk about straight things in class. So the one time I asked the teacher about male on male options, he instantly shot me down and was like, "No, just look it up online in your free time." And then he would have the audacity to say I was the one who wanted to learn about straight intimacy. Yeah, you can probably see why I wasn't a fan of this guy. Plus, he also really liked gymnastics, so we'd be doing it well after our gymnastics term, and I hated this topic. And for those that say, hate is a strong word, yes, I know. That's why I'm using it. Those trampolines would constantly hurt my ankles. I don't know if it was my form or whatever, but it was a nightmare to deal with. And then you would have the balance beams, which suck for me yet again, cause if there's one thing you need to know about me, it's that I have no sense of balance. Like, I trip over my own feet so often, it's actually a recurring gag at this point. And then you would have the parallel bars, balance bars. I don't actually know what they're called, to be honest. The 2 poles where you had to hold up as long as you could. Yeah, hated that one in particular. I had, and still to this day, no upper body strength, so having to hold myself up as long as possible was not a fun experience. And before you mention that I could just let go early, remember, I was a very competitive student, and I didn't want to risk my grades. So yeah, I low-key resented him for making us do it way longer than we needed to. That said, a number of my classmates did like gymnastics, and I'm sure a number of you do too, and that's perfectly valid. Don't take this as me bashing your love for it if you do. It just ain't for me, you know? Anyway, that was a needless ramble I just wanted to get out of my system. But yeah, dancing, 10 out of 10, would highly recommend, super fun experience, and I'm glad I did it. As for the whole grade thing, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, a high school dance grade being a B instead of an A meant absolutely nothing. So I'm glad I picked the choice that at least gave me some fond memories. And with that, that takes us to the end of this video. Thanks for staying so long, and sorry again for my hiatus. Also, if you could also do me a massive solid and like, subscribe, and comment down below, that'd help a lot. And if you want, let me know down below your favourite subject, or if you had any unusual dance stories, good or bad. Anyway, with that ticked off, stay safe and don't let the bed bugs bite. Love you all, bye bye!